Hi, this is Robbie from NAPS, and today I'm kind of wanting to pop on to address something which is a huge problem for the autistic and neurodivergent community in general around the world, and that is whether or not to disclose our neurodivergence in job interviews or if we are already in a workplace situation. And so it's impossible for me to address every kind of individual situation because there are so many individual differences and differences depending on the country that you're in and in your cultural background. But I want to throw out some kind of general guidelines for you to kind of consider. If you do have resources within your region that can assist you, obviously that would be optimal if you can plug into that. Again, that's not going to be the case for everybody all over the world. I realize that in some countries there are waiting lists for evaluations. Some countries and cultures have paradigms about neurodivergence so that it is seen not as a neurological state, but as a mental condition or even an indication of demonic possession and other beliefs for that particular cultural, which may not necessarily be helpful or correct for the neurodivergent person, but it is a reality that some of us may have to navigate. So, what I'll be discussing today are kind of general guidelines that you can, to the best of your ability and within the resources available where you are, maybe help adapt and help give you kind of maybe a general way forward as you're thinking about what you need to do. So the first thing is, do you have an official diagnosis of autism or ADHD or some other neurodivergence? In most places, including the United States and Canada and like Western societies or European societies and a lot of others, in order to actually ask for accommodations and there's a legal obligation on the part of the employer to help you, you do need to have some kind of a diagnosis from a medical provider. This can be very challenging. I know in the United States, we do have private pay. A lot of it's not covered by insurance. And so it can be very expensive. So it can be very challenging. In other places, um, you can maybe do private pay, but there is a public health program, but the queue to get an evaluation can be years and can be very difficult. And then some places it's not even an option, like it's not something you can do, particularly if you're an adult or if you come from a cultural background where it is stigmatized or considered to be something that's very undesirable, right? So if you don't have that, your legal foundation for asking for accommodations can be somewhat limited. If you are in a place where you do have some kind of medical documentation that you are neurodivergent, your best bet when deciding to disclose or not to disclose would be to look at the environment of your employer. There are a lot of places, I'm speaking from a United States perspective here, federal employment and state employment, and some nonprofit employment situations recognize neurodivergence and do seek to acknowledge and hire neurodivergent people. Those are a good place to look. There are other sectors, particularly like the tech industry or maybe retail, like grocery stores and other places where you can see a higher percentage of neurodivergent people as you're going, if you're looking for a job, as you're going throughout your community engaging, um, if you see other people who are like you, because we kind of have a sense of that, it could be a good indication to you that it might be possible for you to get employment in that organization. So your best bet is to first have a diagnosis, and secondly, to seek organizations that proactively hire neurodivergent people, or at least are open to the possibility. Does that always mean that it's going to be optimal or that you will get every accommodation? Not necessarily, right? In the United States, we have something which is called the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, which does require that employers make reasonable accommodations for individuals who have um, diagnosed medical or neurological conditions, which could classify as being a disability, that might require environmental adjustments to accommodate them to do their jobs. Does it always function the way that it should? Not always, but there is a foundation for that. If you are a person like many of us, who went a lot of our lives not having access to accommodations, or maybe many of us are in a place where that's getting a diagnosis is not even feasible for us, at least not immediately. The best bet is to go ahead and do the best you can to accommodate yourself. So this can look like trying to wear, if you have like, say maybe sensory issues with hearing, getting earplugs that are close to the color of your skin. So nothing like neon green, right? Like nothing that's going to be super obvious, and wearing those if you can, if your employer even lets you do this. Some jobs, if you're like on the phone, they may not let you. Um, but doing the best you can. Asking coworkers, hey guys, the fluorescent lights kind of glare off the computer screen. Do you mind if we just keep the lights on like right above us and turn off all these extra lights? For the most part, probably a lot of your coworkers are going to be happy not to have the lights also. You can try that. You can also try to the best of your ability to take sensory breaks, which could be going and standing in the landing of the stairwell, where it's dark and dim, and just for a minute to have nothing coming at you, going to the bathroom and getting in a stall where nobody's talking at you and you're kind of dim. Taking a walk if you have a car, going and sitting in your car, just getting away for a little bit can be super helpful. If your job allows you and you need a sensory tool, keeping a fidget gadget or something you can do even on the down low, like down under your desk, could be helpful and regulating for you. If you can wear like earbuds and listen to music that helps you, or like binaural beats or singing bowls or frequency music, if you like that kind of thing that kind of helps you, that can be a helpful thing to do. Basically, if you don't have a diagnosis, you can't go up front and ask, hey, can you do this for me? Because they don't have to do it, right? So you have to do the best that you can for yourself, usually on the down low, usually asking in a nice way from your coworkers or your supervisor to help you do that. It could be like there's a spare desk in the corner that nobody's using, and you go to your boss and be like, hey, there's that desk in the corner here, and when I work, I like to get in the zone. And I think that would be great because it's, there's not a lot of light, there's not a lot of noise. I can just concentrate on what I'm doing, but I'm close enough to the team, that we can still talk. Are you okay? If I sit there. Some bosses will just be very unpleasant, be like, no. um, but a lot of them, if you can present it in the right way, and focus on your productivity without having to say necessarily, oh, I think I'm autistic and I need this, which they probably won't listen to. Focus on productivity, like, hey, it's kind of quiet. I'll be in the zone. I can still talk to people. Most normal, rational, reasonable people will let you do that, right? If they don't, that's another story, and we'll move on to that in the next section of this video. But do the best you can to accommodate yourself. If you are in an environment where you can do minimal or no accommodations while you're at work, particularly like retail where they have music pumping and people in your face and there's all this stuff, do the best you can when you are out of work to focus on self-care. And that can look like coming home, putting on super comfortable clothes, getting in bed in the dark and just laying in the dark for hours and decompressing, or playing games, or watching your favorite movies or TV shows, or something that helps you regulate yourself, regulate your nervous system, and kind of decompress in a sensory issue, and detach from it. It's super important. Make sure you drink enough water. Make sure you're eating right. and sleeping and hygiene and basic things to take care of yourself will help a lot in being able to manage all of the onslaught from your work environment if you can't do anything to mitigate that. The third thing that you might want to consider, and it's not viable for everybody in every place. We have different skill sets, different executive functioning levels. Not all things are accessible in every community. Is possibly trying to find ways to get another job, which could help. It's a better environment that might help you, or to start looking for ways to offer your services, to start kind of your own side hustle businesses. It could be dog walking, house sitting, yard care, maybe delivery services. Like in the US, we have Instacart, which is grocery shopping, um, DoorDash and Uber Eats, which are where you go to restaurants and pick up orders for people. Some of this can be done on a bicycle or whatever. A lot of it is driving. If you can't drive, it may not be an option for you, but there may be other options. The other thing could be part-time work at quiet shops. Um, Maybe offering, if you have software development services or clerical skills, you might be able to pick up some extra work doing that. Again, it's not feasible for everybody. It doesn't necessarily mean it is going to be sustainable for you. If you live with your family or a house share arrangement where you don't have a lot of expenses, it might be easier to piece things together doing a lot of part-time jobs. If you are completely independent and trying to create income for yourself, it may not necessarily be sustainable, but it is an alternative that can help while you're trying to find something else. The other thing is reach out to your network if you have one and let them know, hey, I'm trying to find something else. Let them kind of know what you're looking for. It's good if you don't already have a resume or a CV to put one together. If you don't know how to do this, a lot of places have community services, or you can get templates online to help you do this, to put something together that shows that you do have skills, um, or whatever kind of job you've done or education. It doesn't have to be extensive, right? Not everybody has to be a PhD or doing, you know, any kind of like neurosurgeon kind of a role. Whatever skills you have, you can get something doing that. And it's important for you to be able to tell people, hey, I have this. If you are part of a social services program or employment assistance program, they should be able to help you do this. So you might find that to be helpful also. Um, there can be different ways you put it together. You might have to dig around, you might have to look, you might have to talk to people, which can be hard, but there are opportunities to do other things in your area, even if it's manual labor in some places that can help you supplement your income while you try to move to something better. So essentially, when you're deciding whether to disclose or not, you need to consider, first of all, do you have an official diagnosis? And is this an important thing in the country that you live in to have that? If you do not, are there ways that you can help to accommodate yourself without having to tell people, hey, I think I'm autistic, which might not be received well? Do you have other skills of whatever sort that you could use to help supplement your income? And are there any programs in your area that help neurodivergent people? You don't have to always come out and say that you're autistic if you're in an industry that welcomes that and you know you absolutely have to have accommodations to do your job and you have a piece of paper, then it's generally fairly safe and you almost kind of have to go ahead and come out and say, hey, I'm autistic. I need this kind of thing. If you don't have that, you need to work with it the best you can. And it may not necessarily be in your favor to say that you think you're autistic. You can phrase in other ways of um, bright lights kind of make my eyes hurt and I get headaches, or I can't concentrate if there's a lot of like noise. I do better if I'm here doing this. Um, Proving yourself to be a productive employee goes a long way to seeking additional accommodations without a piece of paper. Um, and just being a trustworthy person with your neighbors and your social circle, if you have one, can help you get referrals for employment. Basically, just indicating, hey, I'm a good person. You can trust me to do my job, whatever it is. And, in a case, if you are starting an entrepreneurial thing, it doesn't necessarily hurt to go ahead and say, I'm an autistic person and I do dog walking or I do order delivery or I can do yard work. A lot of people who have the means to hire people to do tasks like that would like to help the autistic community or someone who has a disability. And in that case, it won't work against you. So you kind of have to get a feel for what organization you're with and what their attitude toward it is. And if you've been in a workplace, particularly a corporate workplace that doesn't embrace neurodiversity, you're going to know that super quick, right? And so you can kind of get a feel of this is not really going to serve me in the end and start looking for places that do. Um, if your area has any services, please do research and find out about that. If not, there can be more regional or even global organizations that might be able to help you. Special Eastern, I know, is in North America, and I think they might have a presence in other places. They have some internships and different programs and different guidelines. They might be able to provide you some information to help with that. So I know this is not comprehensive and it's not going to help everybody in every situation because there are so many variations of it. But just when you're deciding to disclose or not, take into account what kind of place you're dealing with, what is their general attitude. And if they've given you an attitude at all without you disclosing, you can kind of guess they probably are going to have even more of an attitude if you do, right? If you don't have a piece of paper, it may not necessarily serve you to say, I'm autistic. It could not, depending on the place, right? So just start getting a feel for where you are at and use your best judgment. If you have a coworker that you trust, you could talk to them about it. If you have a family member or neighbor or friend or somebody else that you trust, you could talk to them about it. Human resources at a lot of organizations are willing to help and accommodate you if you have a piece of paper. Remember that human resources primary function is not to serve the employee, it is to serve the employer and safeguard their legal rights and protect them, right? So depending on the organization, you can't necessarily go to the human resources department and say, hey, I think I'm autistic, but I don't have a diagnosis, and so can you help me? They might be able to, but they might not, particularly if they feel that you're asking for accommodations. Most accommodations for our community are not expensive or extensive, right? It's, can I sit in the desk that's over there in the dark with not a lot of noise? Can I wear earplugs? Can I do a hybrid situation? Some places you can't. If you're working in a grocery store, you can't work remotely, right? So there's a difference, but don't necessarily assume that human resources is going to be able to solve your problems for you if you do not have a piece of paper. Um, so hopefully this has given you something to think about. NAPS is a peer support group. We don't currently have any resources available to do any kind of employment assistance or placement or anything in the US and certainly not abroad. We just encourage you to please seek out resources in your area. Do some research about organizations that might be embracing neurodiversity and also look into any skills that you have to offer to your community for like part-time paid work and don't disregard what you can do. There are a lot of people who need help with housework and laundry and taking care of their pets, or maybe basic assistance getting around, or basic yard work, or doing deliveries and that kind of thing. If you can drive, there's a lot that you can do that doesn't require extensive university education or certification, that kind of thing. So don't underestimate what you do have to offer, okay? Because you probably have a lot more than you imagine that you do. At any rate, we will be back with you again. I am planning that our next discussion will be about bullying. That is experienced by the autistic and neurodivergent community as a whole, because this is a very, very common experience for all of us everywhere. It can be very important part of our journey in maybe not always a positive way, right? It can be very negative and something we need to work through. And it's definitely an area for more education and awareness. At any rate, until I see you again, please do take every effort to take care of yourself, believe in yourself, research resources in your area that can help to support you, believe in yourself and what you have to offer, and just keep going. You're awesome. You're here for a reason. We believe in you, and we'll catch you later. Bye.